Tonight, we just have one of our absolute favorite guests on Wellness Wednesday. Marquetta is an incredible educator. She is a creator. She is a businesswoman. She is just so much to our industry. And so please, in the chats, welcome Marquetta Breslin. What's up, Marquetta?
You know what? You guys are some of my favorite people, and I am so honored to be a guest again on this show. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. You're always one of our favorites because you just bring so much wisdom to the channel. So
thank you.
I want to kind of kick this off because this subject of forgiveness it's such a huge subject, and it's not something I feel like you just kind of magically wake up one day and you're like, I want to talk about forgiveness more. So, I'm kind of curious, like from your story, from your history, what has made you so passionate about talking about forgiveness?
It was, understanding the freedom that comes with just letting go altogether. So a few years back, I had this 5-day live event that I was doing. And at this event, beauty professionals were coming in, and we would do nothing for those I thought we were going to do nothing for those 5 days, but work on their businesses. And so I had structured the event out, and of course, it never goes the way you plan when it comes to stuff like that. And one of the biggest things that I was so excited about was getting everybody in front of the camera to be able to just share their stories. But what I found as people were standing up to get in front of the camera is that the more painful the story was, the harder it was to get it out. And about 2 years prior to that, I had a moment where I was just sitting in my closet. I would go in my closet to pray sometimes, and I would sometimes just sit there and meditate for however long. And I just remember I just started crying out of nowhere, and the tears just started to flow, and I just started to write. And what I was writing were names, and I just kept going, and I'm writing names, and I'm looking at these names, and it was the names of people that I needed to forgive that had hurt me. And I remembered how free and how light I felt after that. So as I began to watch each person come up and share their stories and see how painful it was to tell certain aspects of their stories, it dawned on me that we needed to do that exercise. And so as we began to sit there, and I began to have them write that list of people they needed to forgive, by the time we got done doing everything that we did and they came back up to get in front of the camera again, they were lighter. They just felt more free. And it's just something that I felt at that moment, that every time I encounter people or have some sort of thing where I have to teach people something, and it's in a group setting like that, it's so important to go through that exercise, because I believe as business owners, salon owners, beauty professionals, we take in so much, and to layer what our clients are telling us on top of what we're already dealing with can be dangerous. And so we have to learn how to release what we're personally dealing with so that we can then be that counselor for our clients, or be who we need to be for them in that moment.
Yeah. Absolutely. Before that moment, hanging out in your closet and praying, did you recognize that it was that need for forgiveness before that moment? Or was that like just that kind of epiphany moment of like, oh my gosh, I've been holding on to all this stuff?
It was an aha epiphany moment. And the craziest thing was, by the time I got to myself, I wrote my own name down. That's when I got really emotional, because I didn't even realize that I had been so mean to myself, or so just negative towards my own self. And it just dawned on me, that was an aha moment, because we always think, oh, I forgive you. Oh yeah, but we say it, but the heart, the posture of the heart doesn't follow with those words. And that's when it dawned on me in that moment that, wait a minute, this is an actual process that I have to go through to really and truly be free, because when you don't forgive, you allow other people to have control over your emotions.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is such a huge point, because I think that a lot of times we almost picture forgiveness to be for them, and it's not, right?
Yep. Forgiveness is not for the other people. It's for you personally, because we carry, here's the thing about forgiveness that a lot of people, or offense, let's just say, because sometimes unforgiveness stems from that seed of offense that was planted, right? So let's say that you get offended by something someone says or something someone does. Maybe they went to the store and they didn't bring you back something, but you also didn't ask. So what happened there was a miscommunication, because you had an unrealistic expectation of someone else that they had no clue that even existed. So now you're thinking in your mind, wait a minute, they're not thinking about me. They don't think about me in that way. They don't really like me because they didn't even think about me when they went to the store. So there's that seed of offense, and then it gets watered. And then before you know it, offense has turned into harboring this unforgiveness that you now need to let go because of something so small that was a miscommunication, that you felt like someone should have done something for you when they didn't even know you had that expectation.
I just had a huge aha moment as you said that, because I think a lot of times we associate this response of forgiveness with this huge event, like, oh my gosh, this person broke my heart, or they said something terrible to me. But it could be as simple as, I'll just use an example from my own life. I went to the store and I forgot to get bubbly water that, my wife, Michelle, really wanted some bubbly water at the house. And I come home, I don't have it. I don't even realize I've forgotten it. And not that she would get upset about that, but, maybe in her head, she's like, well, gosh, why would Andrew forget my bubbly water? And like, it's those little things that we also kind of have to have that moment of, okay, I need to forgive this person.
Yeah. And then sometimes not even realizing that sometimes people may say things or their actions may not line up with what you think they should be, but it could be because they're dealing with their own issues internally, and maybe they're just having a bad day that day, or maybe you just so happen to be the person that they use certain words towards and they really didn't mean it, but they said it and you never addressed it. And so there's that thing where you're like, well, I'm just not going to deal with them anymore, and that issue is never resolved. And then it gets so bad that every time you think about that person or see that person, your face gets all wrinkly and you begin to think all these negative things, when really we just had to release those emotions. Releasing those emotions is so incredibly important, because then that person is living rent-free, or that situation is living rent-free in your mind. And you can't truly grow and move forward when you're carrying all of that baggage.
There we go. There's the truth right there. I just want to, connect to a couple of these comments too, because Tiffany kind of brought up like the miscommunication. It can turn to resentment if it's not addressed, like you just said. And that, I think that's really key. Like if we don't address it, that's that thing that stays with us and like builds up. And Carlo, I love how Carlo put this. We create the story, then we let that story start to guide our feelings, which is so exactly what happens. Absolutely.
Yes, I love that one. I love that one, because we'll create this story in our minds when 9 times out of 10 is probably not even the case. Maybe the person got busy or something out of the ordinary happened. Like case in point for me, I totally forgot to text someone back. I don't remember. It may have been a family member, but I went an entire month without texting this person back, but it was because we were battling COVID. And that was the last thing that was on my mind, but they thought I was upset at them. And I had to explain, no. I promise you, that's not what it was. I was dealing with this whole separate issue.
I'm kind of almost dying in the hospital. So yeah, getting back to you probably wasn't the highest priority.
Yes. But we create this story and then we live out these different scenarios. And then we just take that and run with it when that's probably not the case.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And also, yeah, Tiffany, we've all been guilty of it. So don't worry, you're in good company here, my friend. But
yes.
Misty's saying we will be mad at someone and they don't even know it. It affects us, not them. And that's huge because I know for myself, I can be the story creator very often. And I'll sit with that pain inside, and that other person, they're not even giving it a single thought. So it's me and that's being affected, and I'm the person being affected when it's them that I'm upset with, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, does it?
No, it doesn't. It makes no sense whatsoever. But that's just how we deal with the human emotions, and we just have to learn how to channel that the correct way. And I think, and this is just in my Marquetta brain, but I think principles and things like this should be taught very early on in life, because imagine carrying hurt, pain, resentment, unforgiveness, and all of that through someone or something or a situation that hurt you in grade school, and you carry that baggage all the way to into your adult life. And now you have an issue trusting people. You have an issue with relationships. You have an issue with healthy relationships. And you always have in the back of my mind, well, this happened to me when I was little, so I have to keep my guard up so that it doesn't happen to me as an adult. And that has stayed with you for so long because you never really learned how to let that go. And I think it's so important that we teach all of these other things in grade school, but we also need to teach how to deal with emotions to help with mental health very early on, so that these things don't fester into adult life.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So true. Oh my gosh. Wow, Tiffany, you are just like dropping gems here.
Oh, thank you.
It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die won't be detrimental to them.
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome. Great way to put that.
Yeah, that's really good right there. That's really, really, really good. Drinking poison.
I do think that you're really on to something with like trying to get this to be something that we understand at an earlier phase, because like the longer this sits with us, the more that it affects that subconscious mind, the more it affects how we treat each other. And here's the thing, Marquetta, like it's not like we haven't talked about forgiveness with children, right? Like, I mean, we hear that word, but there's something missing. Like, I feel like there's something missing maybe in how we're communicating it. Like, what are we missing when we typically talk about forgiveness?
I think it's because we don't practice what we preach. Because I've talked about it so long. I talked about it when my kids were small. Make sure you say, I'm sorry and forgive. And, I am a believer in Christ. And this scripture keeps this parable keeps ringing in the back of my head. And it's a guy who comes to Jesus and he says, if my brother, the word says, if my brother sins against me, or basically if somebody does something wrong to me, how many times should I forgive them? And Jesus says to him, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. So what he's saying is you got to be in a state of constant forgiveness, because how can you want forgiveness for something you've done if you're not willing to give that same type of forgiveness to other people? Yeah. And so even though we may say that to our children, they watch our actions, and our actions may not dictate that, because children are paying attention whether we like it or whether we know it or not. They are hanging on to our every word, and they're watching how we respond to things and how we handle people. And I think that it starts there, is that as human beings, we sometimes do not practice what we preach, and we'll say one thing, but our actions will go in a totally different direction and it won't line up. And so it's not a great example. And we have to be, if we're going to say that, especially to children, and know that they're watching, they have to watch how we handle situations. So one of the, this story just hit me so hard. Earlier this year, I went to go visit a couple of friends in Denver. And she was telling me this story about years ago. She was just in a random conversation with like maybe two other ladies. And she said something, but she didn't remember what she said, but she noticed that as the words left her mouth, there was a reaction from one of the ladies that wasn't like a pleasant reaction. It was like, oh, why did you say that? So she said after that moment, she did not hear from this lady for about 2 to 3 years. And she didn't really think anything of it. She just thought maybe, they were busy or, life happens. Until one day the lady called her, and the lady said to her, I've been holding on to this for all of these years. And she started naming the things almost verbatim, what she said that offended her. And the way my friend handled this taught me a lot about how we can sometimes handle things, because let's say somebody does have an issue with something that we've done and we're the person that needs to be forgiven. And part of their process is coming to us to say, hey, this is what you did. It really hurt me. A lot of times what we'll do is go into defense mode and say, oh, no, that's not what I said, or I didn't mean that. But the way she handled this was amazing to me. She says, you know what? I don't remember saying that, but I believe you when you say that I said it, and I apologize to you. I did not. And she was very humble in her response, even though she said, Marquetta, from what she told me, I could have said that to you and you would have laughed and you would have never been offended. The normal person would not have been offended, but I hurt her. And if I hurt her, that means that it hurt me, because I don't want to hurt people. And that's exactly her approach to this lady. And it just blew my mind. And I said, oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. And they were fine after that. But that taught me something, because a lot of people go into defense mode, because what we have to realize is that we can't feel what the other person is feeling. So no matter how small we think something is, if it's big to them, then that's how they feel. And we have to own what we've said or done and apologize and move forward, because it's important. That's an important step in a lot of people's process.
Absolutely. I think that's beautiful too, because there's like such a nice kind of two-sided thing that's happening there, which is, I think, what happens a lot of times when this type of sensitive discussion comes up. It's not two-sided anymore. It's just one person saying something and then another person saying something, instead of, oh, okay, how can I find this common ground between the two of us? That shows a lot of heart and a lot of character for your friend to just say, okay, I don't have to jump to defense here. I can just be present. And I think that, kind of to Carlo's point too here, the invitation is to remind our children that forgiveness returns our power, and it doesn't mean the justification of the other's behavior. And I think that kind of goes along with what you're saying, because it's not like she said, oh yeah, you're right, I'm a terrible person. Like, she didn't necessarily confirm the other person's perception. What she did was just take ownership for her piece of it, right?
Yes.
And I think that's fantastic. Like, just saying like, hey, I'm sorry, doesn't necessarily say I'm a terrible person, which I think is kind of the part that people get hung up on about forgiveness, is like, oh, I don't want to, apologize. I don't want to give forgiveness because it justifies, or it puts me in a different place or in a different perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of times, coming from that place of being humble and accepting of your words or your actions potentially hurting someone, when you know in your heart that's not what you've meant or you felt, is that peace, that pride that puffs up inside of us. And it's like, no, I didn't mean that. But when you take a step back and say, you know what? I apologize. Then you can see it from the way they see it, because you're coming from a place of being humble and not on the defense. And it allows you to have that empathy for that person, to be able to see things from their perspective and say to yourself, you know what? That probably was not the best way for me to say that, or maybe I could have said something different. And it doesn't always mean having to admit that in that. It may not be the time for you to admit it in that situation or conversation, depending on how it's going, but at least understanding and accepting responsibility, like you said, for your piece in it, that's an important piece as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to the point of like what was kind of missing with how we've had this conversation with the children too, like Shirley said, you lose the authenticity part. And the kids are man, they're so in tune, aren't they?
Yes.
Like their BS meter is so good.
Woo, yes.
And if we're telling them, hey, you got to be forgiving, but then we're not showing that grace that your friend showed in the presence of the children, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of telling them, hey, you should forgive people.
And then, another big piece to the forgiveness aspect is a lot of people won't forgive because they feel like, oh, if I forgive this person, I have to let them back into my life. But you don't have to let them back in. You can forgive and then go on about your business without allowing them to come back into your life, because some relationships are just not healthy relationships. But it's still an important aspect of whatever occurred in that situation to forgive and then move on with life without that person in your life. And that's a big piece that people are like, no, I would never forgive them because I don't ever want to have anything else to do with them. And you still don't have to have anything to do with them after that. You can still forgive. One of the most powerful things that happened at one of those 5-day events is there was a young lady at the event that had to forgive the individual that murdered her child. That was so incredibly powerful and difficult. There was another young lady who had to forgive her father, who raped her over and over and over again as she was a little girl. But to see the difference from these people who come in with all of this baggage and who leave free and totally free, and they've let go of all of the baggage and the forgiveness, it's amazing to me. You can physically see the difference. It's almost like we're carrying around the balls and chains on the back of our feet. We're dragging them around, and that gets exhausting. It gets exhausting, and you can physically see. Sometimes you can, I don't know about you, Andrew, but I can sometimes physically see hurt and pain on somebody's face, or in the way they're in their demeanor, or in their languaging. And it's so amazing to me to see how powerful it is to forgive and posture the heart the same way, not just to say it, but to also know it and live it. That thing is just, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with those two examples, those would be those places that it's like, you really have to get clear that this has nothing to do with them being okay or them feeling anything different about what they've done. It's about me feeling different about how I feel towards that person. That's huge. That's huge.
It's powerful. Some of those situations, even me and understanding the power of forgiveness would be extremely difficult for me to even, I would really have to be sit down and probably multiple times and really sit there and think about that and go through that process. But it's so incredibly important, especially for those things, because think about it. Think about carrying that for so many years and how that can sway your decisions for almost every decision that you make in life.
Yeah.
is centered around this situation or this thing that happened. And unforgiveness a lot of times has hindered people from walking in their true destiny, because they can't let go of the past, or they can't let go of something or someone that has hurt them. And it has put up these walls that they can't walk through. They just stand there at the wall because they don't know how to break the wall down, take a sledgehammer and break it down. And that wall is oftentimes unforgiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Did you ever see, there was a documentary, and it was Morgan Freeman. He did this documentary, and it was like something about like the story of God or something like that. He goes to all these different places and studies these different religions and like the sources of the God within the religion. But in that, there was a story of this Muslim man, and it was like both my wife and I are sitting here just like tears running down her face, because he went after the sentencing of his son's killer. He went to him and he gave him this huge hug and told this man that he loved him and he forgave him. And I was just like, Michelle and I were just like in tears, because it was this moment that you could feel how sincere this person was. And you could also see what a release this was for that person to do that. And it was like, man, surely, where was that?
I haven't seen it, but I have to watch it.
Oh my gosh. Seen it. Beyond the fact that it's an incredible documentary that you will absolutely love, because I know you're a very spiritual person, like that particular part, and like Shirley saying here, if people with that kind of trauma can forgive, that is so incredibly inspiring. And I think that's exactly what Michelle and I felt. It was like, wow, if this person can forgive that, like actually give this other person love after something like that, like, who am I to be pissed off because someone parked in my parking spot or something, right? Yes,
that is so true. I mean, and think about it, especially in times like this. Think about the power that forgiveness can bring and the peace that it could bring to certain people's lives if they just stopped for a moment and released that offense and just said, you know what? I forgive. I release it. I have to let it go because it's not serving you in any capacity. At what point, and this is a question that I often ask myself, at what point and how productive is it to sit here and just like not like this person or hate this person or not have forgiveness in my heart towards this person? What good is that doing? And there's never, I have yet to be able to answer that question. Nope. It's not doing any good. And a lot of times when people say things or do things, it could just be because it could be jealousy, it could be an insecurity, it could be a lot of things, but 9 times out of 10, it's not even about the person. It's not even about you. It's about them and their insecurities. And when you can release how you feel towards those people, you begin to have compassion towards that individual or those individuals, and you look at them totally different. Here's another story. This is my coffee kicking in. So,
okay, so Marquetta and I, right before we jumped on, I showed her, I was like, I don't ever drink coffee in the afternoon, and I had like a full cup right before we jumped on, and she's like, I did too. So you're getting very chatty, Marquetta.
Yes. So there's this story about this guy. His name is Graham Cook. This story, you can find it on YouTube. I was blown away by this. And he used to go to these different churches, and he would preach and he would talk about different things and healing and stuff like that. And he would have these 3 guys buy tickets to attend his event, stand outside the door and tell people how much of a horrible person he was, how he was teaching false doctrine, all kinds of things.
Wow.
And for a long time, it worked his years, probably about, I think he said 3 to 4 years, it worked his last nerves. And he would pray and he would say, well, can't you just make him go somewhere else, God? Like, please. And so one day he had just got done praying or something like that. And he had laid down to take a nap and he had a dream. And in his dream, he was sitting beside Jesus or somewhere up in heaven, and in rolls this huge piece of marble or something. Mm-hmm. And he says, do you want to see what this is? And he said that the outside was just beautiful. And Graham says, yes, of course. And so in walk these people. He can't see the faces of the people. And it's 3 people and they're building this thing and they're chiseling it and it's looking amazing. And then Jesus sitting beside him is like, cheer him on. And he's cheering him on. He's like, go, go, go. And as they're building this thing and they finally finish, he's cheered them on and it looks amazing. And it's so beautiful that he's crying because of the beauty of this thing. And so in this dream, Jesus looks at him. He said, now this is beautiful. And he said, absolutely. And it ended up being a picture of him. It was a marble statue of him. He said, do you want to see who built this? And Graham says, yes, of course. And out walks the 3 people who have been showing up to his event. and then there was this huge revelation of how what in the dream, what the revelation of the dream was that these people are not there to tear you down. They're there to build your character. So don't be upset with them. Learn from it. And he said he woke up screaming and told his wife, I know why they're there. I know why they're there. And so after that, when he would have these events, they would still show up. He treated them differently. He treated them with love and with kindness and with respect and honor. And although they thought he was crazy, a year or 2 later, they stopped showing up to the event. And I thought, what a cool dream. But it just speaks to the power of just understanding that sometimes these things aren't just to annoy you. They're to build your character. They're to help you to understand how to deal with certain things so that when you're here and it's time for you to level up, you already know how to handle this. You've already been equipped. So now when you get here and you're dealing with things that are supposed to offend you, that you roll on by because you've already been prepared for that.
Man, is it any wonder why we love having her on here? Come on. I mean, if you are loving this, will you guys please just like throw some hearts, some thumbs up, some smiley faces, show Marquetta some love here because this is gold. I don't know about you, but I've got like chills.
I just love that story because often it just reminds me that not every situation is meant to tear us down. Absolutely. It's just not. We're there to learn. And I one more sitting in the back of my mind. If you think about seeds, right? In order for a seed to take root and grow, it needs to be planted in fertile ground. It needs to be planted in good soil.
Oh, I know where you're going with this one. I like this.
But what does soil need in order for it to grow, in order for that seed to grow and be nurtured even more? Manure. And having that manure, nobody likes manure. It doesn't smell good. We think of it as waste, but manure to soil nurtures the seed. So sometimes we need these types of situations to help to nurture us so that we can grow and be who we are meant to be. But that I discovered that probably about 3 weeks ago when I was reading, I don't remember what I was reading. I was reading a book and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so true. And I thought about my grandfather and how he always used cow manure or some sort of manure to nurture the garden. But without that, it's not going to grow as strong. Sometimes it doesn't grow as strong as it could when it has that waste, that the nurture from that manure. It just makes it that much stronger and that much more pure.
Absolutely.
I think that is just so amazing.
It's beautiful. Absolutely. My friend Carlo that's on here tomorrow morning, we have our what we call Testimony Thursdays, where we kind of have these kind of conversations. And we did just a handful of weeks ago talk about like how important some of these things that we don't want to happen to us, that are uncomfortable to us, how important they are that it does actually happen. Because fire season had just started here. And frankly, I was scared. I'm like, I don't want this. I don't want the fires. And one of the things that I learned last year about fire season is that part of the reason our fire seasons are so bad is because we have stopped fire from happening naturally. And it has actually caused a negative effect because we keep shutting this thing down that we don't want to happen. In fact, redwood trees cannot even reproduce if there isn't fire in their presence. And so it's like these things that we always are like, oh, I don't want this to happen. This is a terrible experience. Sometimes they have to happen so that we can grow, so that, you know, to your point of the soil. And so if we can get to that place where we can see these things as like, okay, well, this is an opportunity for growth for me. When I listen to you and Zakia, is that the right way to pronounce her name? There was actually like this step-by-step process that you guys talked about on like offering forgiveness, giving, like having that forgiveness and doing it in a way that also kind of like you said, you can still have some boundaries with it too. So can you kind of share with us, like, how do we go through this process of forgiveness?
Yeah. So the process, so Zakia was one of those ones. She's been to one of my 5-day events. And at that event, well, now I have it, I structure it in there, whereas I didn't before because I didn't even know it was a thing we needed to do. So there was a portion in the event where I had everybody write their I forgive list. And it seems like something so simple, but it was one of the most difficult tasks for probably almost everybody in the room. And that I forgive list is just a list of people that you need to forgive, yourself maybe included, right? So they wrote this list. And then after writing the list, you say it out of your mouth. You look at each name and you say it out of your mouth. I forgive Mom, or I forgive Dad, or whoever it is. But it's not just saying it one time. It's saying it until you believe it, until it's easy to say. Because sometimes those words are very hard to get out, because then you begin to think about, thank you. You begin to think about that person and what they did to you. But here's the key. You have to feel the emotions of the situation as you're doing this exercise. You cannot push it down. You cannot sweep it away. You can't not cry. It is very important. It is imperative that as you're going through this process, you feel each and every emotion. It's actually healthy for you to release. As you're crying, that's a form of release. As you're screaming, maybe you need to scream. That's a form of release of getting that out. So that is so critical. That's one of the most important steps in the process. Now, sometimes, even in saying it, that's not enough for some people. And so in Zakia's story, what I had her do was go and write an open letter. And she went and she wrote an open letter. And in this open letter, you never have to give it to the person. You don't have to read it to them. It's just for you. It's for you to be able to get those feelings out in a journal or on paper, or however you want to do this, or type it, or even in your phone. It's a way for you to get those feelings out. It's just another part of the process. Some people don't even have to go that far. It's just the saying it and the feeling those emotions. That's it for them. And that was the process that I took her through, and that I took them through in the room. And she ended up writing a book on, and she has a few more processes that she takes people through to get to that point of freedom, true freedom. Mm-hmm. But the biggest thing that I found, the thing that brings the most freedom the quickest, is writing that list and saying it and feeling those emotions. If you could just get that far, I always say that when you take action and when you do that, then everything else will begin to fall into place. But you have to be open to receiving whatever it is that comes with that, which means those emotions and all of that stuff, and truly being okay with releasing the emotions associated with that individual.
Absolutely. So awesome. Yeah, Shirley says, okay, that doesn't sound fun, necessary, but ow.
It's not. It's not fun at all, especially when it's you that you have to. I just went through this 3 days ago, and walking through walking myself through forgiveness. And when I had COVID, I felt, when I was in the hospital, I was in ICU for 5 days. And at the beginning of my stay in the hospital, I felt like my body was literally failing me. I thought I was going to die. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even walk from to the bathroom. It was around a curtain. I couldn't walk that far without needing oxygen. It got so bad that my nurse had to bring in a bedside toilet for me to just get up and go to the restroom there, because I couldn't breathe. Mm-hmm. And I did not realize this, but I got so angry at my body and angry at myself because of how I have not been eating healthy, not had been exercising or doing any of that. And I got so mean and so mad at myself at that time that it festered until a couple days ago. I realized, oh my gosh, I've been so mean and critical to myself that it was even hard for me to forgive myself. Yeah. And I've done this before. So I said that to say this: it's not going to always be easy. And it's something that you have to continue to work at, even when it's yourself, even when it's people that are close to you, that you love, that you talk to every single day. It's not going to be easy, but it is so necessary. I feel so free and light right now. I love myself. I am not upset at myself anymore, but it took me having one of those moments and breaking down and saying, oh my gosh, how I've been so angry at myself for something that I had no control over.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I can absolutely tell you that has been probably my biggest thing to the barrier to forgiveness has been some of the things from my past. And I think that when you carry something for so long, it's very hard to identify, because the body will get comfortable, right? Like the body almost gets comfortable with the pain. And so it starts to almost not even identify that it's present. If something's kind of fresh, it's a new wound, where we can see that. But when it's something old, like something from, back when I was in my 20s, and some things that I said to people and the ways that I treated certain people, I apologized to them. I did not forgive myself. That didn't really come up until I watched your show with Zakia. Wow. So I've got some work to do, and luckily I'm going to the coast next week, which is my like deep healing place, and I'm gonna have to go sit by the water and do some journaling, because as soon as you guys brought this topic up, I was like, oh, that thing's still there. Oh gosh.
And isn't it shocking to even think about it and to say it, because you don't even realize, you just don't realize we are, and I don't even like to say this, but we can be, I'll say it that way, our own worst critic. And I think that is more harmful than positive, because we hold ourselves to a standard that we wouldn't even hold anybody else to, I think, at times. And it's okay to think to hold yourself to some sort of a standard, but I think sometimes we can take it way too far as people, and we're so hard on ourselves, and we're not forgiving of ourselves, and we beat ourselves up for the smallest things, when other people are just so forgiving and they just move on, and we're still holding on to the thing that we did because we felt that it was so bad. And it may not have even been that bad. And you're so right. You are so right. And I think this process is just something that we just have to continue to strive for, so that we're able to be who we need to be for other people, and for us to help them go through this process. Because I always say, the people who are watching right now and the people who will watch the recording, you're not watching it by accident. This is so that you can help get free on your own, so that you can then go help other people. Because think about how powerful media is, and how we're using this platform and this media to help talk about something like forgiveness to beauty professionals. But as beauty professionals, like I said earlier, we deal with so much. People unload on us a lot. Even if you're a nail technician, if you're if you're a hairstylist or whatever it is, people oftentimes sit in our chairs and they talk about our problems. And I think that's part of the call to be in the beauty industry. I believe so.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
We imagine understanding the power of forgiveness, having gone through it, and you have someone sitting in your chair that's dealing with something like this, that you're able to help because you've been through it. That to me is very powerful.
Man. Marquetta, I seriously just want to have this conversation for hours and hours and hours.
I
know. This is so beautiful. And Shirley's like, yeah, she's going to make me cry. And seriously, like, it's hitting hard. It's hitting hard. And thank you too for saying that, like, as hairdressers, we have this incredible ability to offer these gifts, but it has to be a gift to us first. Yes. Because if we don't do it for ourselves first, we have nothing to offer the other person. And so turning this sense of forgiveness, turning this sense of understanding, and like you said, like, not being so hard on ourselves and holding ourselves to these unrealistic expectations that we probably don't even hold anyone else on this planet to. That has to happen first so that we can give these gifts.
Yes, you are so right. And imagine being able to be free enough to pour out to that. I think we've all, at least once in our career, have had that woman come in that's being battered or being abused. And imagine being able to be so free that, because sometimes when we deal with issues and baggage, we can project that onto the person that's sitting in the chair and share information or say something that may not necessarily be productive for their situation. But imagine having gone through a process like forgiveness, and they're sitting in that chair and you're able to help them come out of a situation. And maybe it's not even forgiveness. Maybe you've just done enough work on self that now you have been able to deal with whatever it is that you deal with, that now you can pour out because you've been poured into, and now you're filled up so you can pour out and help other people. That's such a big piece of what we do as beauty professionals. And I always say that we have the ability to change people's perception about how they feel about themselves. And that's not just on the outside, that's also from the inside. And once we understand that we're more than just hairdressers, we're more than just that. This is I believe to be a beauty professional is a calling, just like being called to be a nurse or a doctor or any other profession. We are just as important, if not more important, because we may be the only saving grace, or we may be the only person that individual has to confide in. And that's a really big deal that we have to take very, very seriously as beauty pros. So I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Your passion comes through loud and clear, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I know that all of you want to hang out with Marquetta as much as you possibly can. So make sure go follow her at Marquetta Breslin. Marquetta offers so much through her social media. It's incredible. Like, she does so much live content, prayer circles. Like, this woman gives so much of her heart. So please go and support her too. And I know that I know this is a little bit off topic, but I want you to also share what you have going on with your business too, so that they know what else they can connect with you on.
Sure. So actually right now, Ricky is my husband and business partner. We just celebrated 18 years in business and in marriage on Monday. So we're having an anniversary sale. We put together about $700 worth of products that we put on sale for only $97. And I'm doing a free event on August 22nd for all those who enroll. All you got to do is just go to marquettabreslin.com/anniversary. You get to see everything right there. But I just have to say again, thank you guys so much for having me. I always have so much fun when I'm here, and it is an honor to be here. And Andrew, you are just amazing. You're one of my favorite people on the planet. Thank you.
She's gonna make me cry now. What Well, I'm sure we'll be in touch soon, my friend. And Thank you again for giving your time to the audience and to our community.
No problem at all. I'm happy to come back anytime.
Oh, well, careful what you say. All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care. Oh, man. I just have to take a big, deep breath for a second because you got me a little choked up.